Hi there, I'm Peter Millard, and in this week's 10-minute workshop, well, I'm going to be making a small oak bathroom shelf, but without any of my fancy tools. It's coming up next. So, a little while back, I did a video about a super simple shelf that I made. It was kind of as a favour for a client. I'd just done a lot of work for that client. They mentioned that they wanted a little shelf to go up in a downstairs toilet. And I just made a simple little MDF shelf that they wanted to paint themselves. And I did a video about it because it was just one of those simple little throwaway things almost. And one of the comments I got was, super simple shelf made with thousands of pounds worth of equipment. Well, yeah, you got me kind of thing. What can I say? Just as the guy who drives a truck for a living will probably have a pretty nice truck. Yeah, carpenters and cabinet makers tend to have thousands of pounds worth of equipment with which they sometimes make relatively simple things. In fact, overwhelmingly they use thousands of pounds worth of equipment to make relatively simple things quickly, and that's the critical thing. But the underlying comment was actually quite fair. You're absolutely right. It was a super simple little thing to make, and I did use some very pricey bits of kit to make it. So I've got another simple little shelf to build, and I thought it might be fun, instead of using all my fancy Festool stuff, to try making it with the cheapest tools I've got. What the shelf is, I don't have any fancy drawings, of course. Just this little sort of pen and ink thing here. Where are we? Is that right? So the shelf itself is just a sort of an L shape. So very simple, two bits of wood joined together. And then down here we've got, it's a bit like pretty much every other shelf you've ever seen, 5 little coat hooks or rope hooks. So you've got a bathroom shelf for bathroom bottles of various types. And then underneath you've got a set of hooks for robes or towels or whatever else. This is a really bad drawing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we are. I'm making it out of oak because they wanted a hardwood one in there. They didn't want a painted thing because it's right in the sort of firing line of the bathroom. So lots of steam and moisture in there. So we'll treat it with a good hard wax oil to make sure there's no water penetration. The shelf itself is about 630 long. I'm going to make it slightly longer at 650 and slightly deeper. I think it's 1200. So I'm going to make it 1200, 120. So I'll make it about 130 tall and deep. Because the existing one, I think, is actually glued onto tiles with like a sort of grab adhesive. So that's going to have to come off in sections, cut that off a little piece at a time. So I want this to be a little bit bigger all around to make sure that I cover up the worst of the mess that's going to be left on those tiles behind it. So that's the basic sort of premise of it. It's not a difficult thing at all, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge for me. To get my head around not using anything black and green to do this job. Yeah, so fun times. So the oak I'm going to use for this little project is actually a reclaimed floorboard or a recycled floorboard. It was some flooring that was rejected by the floorers. A friend of mine, who's a gardener, came across it while I was helping somebody clear out a basement. I think people inherited it when they bought the house. These are the rejects from the flooring guys. And it's actually, a lot of it was rubbish, but some of it is some quite decent American white oak in there. A lot of it was covered with glue and all kinds of nasty stuff. But this is okay. We'll rip the tongue and groove off it and make some nice little 12, 13 centimetre wide strips in this so that we can build this little shelf. So let's talk about the gear that I'm going to be using for this job. Obviously the fancy Festool stuff is completely out of the window, so no MFT. I'll just be using that as a flat work surface. No Festool drills. I've got a Ryobi 18 volt combi drill. I think I've got this together. I think when I got my nailers, because I bought them bare, it was actually cheaper to buy the drill with 2 batteries and a charger than it was to buy 2 batteries and a charger. So I ended up with a drill that I've never used. So there's that. Obviously no Festool track saw, completely out of the equation, so I've dusted off my trusty Titan track saw. We'll be using that. No Festool extractor, of course, absolutely forbidden. So I'll be using the little Work Zone Alde. I hope you'll forgive me, but I will be using the Festool bag conversion for this, because the original Aldi bag is still filthy. It's covered with dust and other nastiness. So that's the basics covered. I think I'm probably only going to be doing hand sanding. I don't think I need a sander for this. The only tricky thing, of course, will be the joining the two pieces together. And well, obviously, no chance of using a domino. I'll have to figure that one out myself. But let's get started. Let's dust off the Titan track saw and start cutting this oak up to size. Now, it did cross my mind before we started this to use my fence dogs and my ooze nest extrusion with an MFT style top to make these cuts, but I decided it probably wasn't in the spirit of this little adventure. So what I'm going to do, we've got the piece of oak down here. I'm just going to cut this to length and then we'll cut it to width. And I'm just using a couple of little bits of offcut to balance the rail, and I'm using a square to set the rail nice and square on the board. So we'll make a couple of cross cuts and then we'll get these 2 pieces cut to length and we can get them cut to width. If only there was a way to make these auto start. I still can't find that flipping IntelliPlug anywhere. It's on a bench somewhere, I'm sure. Right, so first cut done. You'll be shocked to learn that it's absolutely perfect. Standard blade. I don't think I've touched that since I did the Festool Cheap Tool track saw video, which was some time ago. Okay, so next thing will be to rip these down to width. One needs to be slightly wider than the other. Obviously the top shelf is 13 and the bottom will be 13. 130mm less, whatever the thickness of the timber is. Looks like it's at 20mm. But we'll get the first clean edge rip to start with. Then we'll see where we go from there. Try to hold this up. Just over the top. Yeah, I really wish there was a way to auto start that vacuum. Again. There we are. perfect shelf.